Hey everyone, in today's world, building up an AI application is now easier than ever before. And in this video, I'll walk you through the basis of creating your own AI application in no time. And I can assure you that by the end of this video, you will be confident enough to create your own machine learning model and make use of those models in your applications. And what we have here is a simple example of the same. We have created a sales prediction application where we have trained our model with the previous set of data for the past 11 months. And what we want the system to do is to predict the sales for any future dates. Say for example, in this case, I have trained our machine learning model with the previous set of data from the month of January to November. And I will represent the month in terms of integers. Say for example, January is denoted by 1, February as 2, and it goes on till November as 11. And I want the system to learn from the previous set of data and predict the sales for the next month, which is December. So I will try to input the value as 12, which implies the month of December. And as soon as I click predict, you will notice that it's going to make an API call to a local backend. And in our local backend, we make use of that pre-trained model which is fed as an input. And with that pre-trained model, our backend is able to compute and give us the predicted value. So in this case, it has predicted that the sales for the next month, which is December, is going to be somewhere around 3100. So given the set of data for the past 11 months, our machine learning model has predicted the sales for the future month. Hope you got a better understanding of what we are about to discuss in this video. With this idea and without any further ado, let's directly dive into the video and get started. And for creating and training our machine learning model, we will make use of the Google Colab, where you'll be able to run your Python code, train your machine learning models, and do much more. And here, starting with this code block, where we try to import the necessary packages. And what we have here is the input data, where we provide the input data as a 2D format. So the first one is going to denote the month. So as we have mentioned earlier, each month is denoted by an integer value, starting with 1 which represents January and it goes on till level which is November. And we make use of the reshape method to convert the input data which is the feature into a 2D matrix, because the machine learning model accepts the input X as a 2D matrix. And what we have here, Y is going to be the target which denotes the sales for the corresponding months. Say for example, in this case, for the month of January, the sales is going to be 2000 and it goes until the month of November where it is going to be 3000, right? So the feature is going to be the month, which is a 2D matrix, and the target is going to be the sales. So with this input data, we are going to make use of the linear regression method. The reason we stick with the linear regression is that with this data, you can infer that the difference between the sales of each month is going to be in a more linear fashion. There is not much deviation between the sales. So in this case, it is better to go with the linear regression model. And inside the fit method, we pass the feature and the target. And in this code block, we try to predict the data for the given month, which is 12, which represents December. Here, we make use of the NumPy array and pass in the input data, which is 12. And again, we need to make use of the reshape method. Since every input data needs to be in the 2D matrices, we make use of this method so that the machine learning model can easily understand our input data. With this, we make use of the predict method to get the sales for the 12th month, which is December. So as you can see here, it has predicted the sales for the month of 12 to be somewhere around 3100. You will also notice that the sales is gradually increasing by the factor of somewhere around 100. So basically, previous month is going to be 2900, 3000, and the next month is going to be obviously 3100. So the same is being predicted by our machine learning model. With this, we have our machine learning model up and ready. What we do here is to export that model so that it can be utilized by our backend. As I run this code, you'll be able to notice that our model is being exported as a PKL file. And down below, we have a code to explain the same in a graphical format. So the blue dots is going to be the input data, where the X is going to be the month and Y is going to be the sales. Right? So as mentioned earlier, there is no much deviation between the input data. And for predicting the sales for any given future date, our machine learning model is going to draw a straight line that would mostly cover all the input data, which is the blue dots here. So it makes use of the formula y equal to mx plus b, which is basically the equation of a straight line. So till this, we have the input data provided to our system. And what we ask is to predict the sales for the month of December. So this green dot is going to be the predicted sales for the month of December. So as you can see here, it has just extended that straight line to get the predicted value for the month of December. So this is basically how this model works. With this idea, we have a machine learning model exported as a PKL file. So we can utilize this model in our local backend to predict the sales. And for our backend, we mainly rely on Python and Flask. And before getting started, make sure that you have the Python and Flask installed in a local machine. And as you can see here, I have added the sales model.pkl file inside the backend directory. And I have also created a simple Python file server.py. Let's start with the coding part. Here first, let's try to import the necessary libraries. And here we try to load our sales prediction model. The API request is going to be predict and it is going to be a post method. And from the front end, we will be passing the data, which is the month, as an integer value. And we convert that as a 2D format and make use the predict method and passing that input data. And the predicted value is then finally passed to the front end. So in the backend code, it is going to be very simple. Let's try to run our code. We have our backend setup up and ready. Now let's try to focus on the front end part. Here we have a basic React application where we try to make use of the Tailwind CSS. And we try to have two state variables, one for getting the input value, which is the month, and second is going to hold the predicted value which we get from the backend. And let's try to build up the UI part. And we have a button which is predict, and which when clicked is going to call the method handle predict. And this handle predict function will be defined very shortly. And just down below the button, we are going to print the predicted value which we get from the backend. And now we just try to define the handle predict, which is basically making an API call to our backend by passing the input value which the user has provided in the input field. And with this, we have completed the front end setup for building up our web application. And it is going to be a very lightweight project. And if I head over to the browser, you will notice that we have built up the same UI which I have shown earlier in the video. So it's not just the next month, you can input any month. Say for example, if I provide the input value as 13, it is going to return the month of January for the next year. So if I click predict, it is able to predict and give us a value. So this is a very basic application which uses the machine learning algorithm to predict the data of any future dates given we have the input data for the past dates. Hope you find this video useful. If you do so, consider subscribing and I will see you again in the next one.